Welcome to a joint episode of Behind the Crown podcast and Southern Gospel Journal. My name is Daniel Mount, and I have the privilege today of being joined by Bryan Hutson and Josh Griffin. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well also. So has there been any demand recently, any requests for some useless information?
There's always requests for useless information, Daniel. That's one of the I think the most exciting parts of our podcast episode is the useless information. And my wife will say, she said this segment of the useless information, she said, that's right down your alley because you have so much useless information. I said, yes, I do, honey. I said, I've built a career on useless information. So Daniel, do you have some useless information for us tonight?
All right.
I do. So this starts with a piece of Kingsman trivia, if you will, that I'm sure one of you knows. I'm not sure if Josh knows. Josh, do you happen to know what county the Kingsmen come from? We know it's Asheville, North Carolina. Do you know the county?
Buncombe County. I think
Buncombe.
Buncombe
County.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Buncombe County.
Yeah.
Good job. Did you know that there is a word that everybody knows and everybody uses tied to that word?
Ooh.
So there's a bit of a story to this. There was a politician in 1820. This is going all the way back. Some of our founding fathers were still alive.
Yeah.
There was U.S. Representative Felix Walker from Buncombe County, North Carolina. He was giving a very long-winded speech, and it was full, if you will, of what people might call malarkey. the kind of thing politicians do a lot of and have ever since.
Yeah.
But he refused to stop this speech. He said, I'm speaking to the citizens of Buncombe. Well, as a result of that, Buncombe became a slang word for a good 20, 30, 40, 50 years, a synonym for malarkey.
Ah.
You can say he's speaking a lot of malarkey. He's speaking a lot of Buncombe. Well, that slang word fell out of practice. However, American novelist and historian William Woodward wrote a 1923 satirical novel, Bunk. He derived from this word, but he coined a word in this novel, debunk.
Okay.
As a response to answering or refuting malarkey. Refuting Buncombe, debunk, is a word tied to the origin of where Kingsmen come from. How's that?
That is pretty cool. That is
Good
pretty
deal.
cool.
That is neat. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've heard that word pretty much all my life. Did not realize. And I remember the Kingsmen. I lived in Buncombe County. So yeah, that's a great piece of useless information. And like you said, has a significant tie to the Kingsmen Quartet. That's pretty cool.
It does.
Very full time, Daniel. Yeah, very full time.
Ever since I first heard this segment, I was like, if I ever get to do an episode with you two, this is the one I'm pulling out.
Well, that is so cool. That is so cool. Well,
thank you.
I have one that you guys may not know about. Josh might know about this one, and it has a sort of a tie to the Kingsmen. This might be a stretch, but Ray Dean Reese, the longtime owner of the Kingsmen, longtime bass singer of the Kingsmen, loves crackers. He loves saltine crackers. Okay, we're on the cruise. You can ask any former Kingsman, any current guy, when every night for dinner, no matter what they're having on the menu for the cruise, Ray asks for saltine crackers. He just loves saltine crackers. So I found a piece of useless information concerning saltine crackers, and it's this: crackers have holes in them for a reason. Okay, because all the saltines have holes. During the baking process, if the crackers have holes in them, it prevents air bubbles from ruining the product. So if you see the little holes in all the little saltine crackers, they place them in there so it will keep air bubbles from ruining the product. So Ray Dean loves saltine crackers, and I thought that would be a great piece of useless information for tonight because Ray Dean's a big saltine man. Cousin can get me some saltine crackers. That's one of his favorite things in the whole world, some saltine crackers. So there you go.
I can remember back in, I think, year 2008, y'all come and sang at my uncle's church in Pearson, Georgia. And Ray was on the bus, and he come outside to the church or something, y'all setting up, and he come to my uncle, and he said, "Can I borrow some saltine crackers? Y'all got any there in the church?" And I can't talk like Ray in this Ray voice, but my uncle come to me and said, he said he wants to borrow some saltine crackers. I said, he wants some. Just go get him some. He went and got him a whole box. He said, you just keep them. Ray said, I'll give them back. You just keep them.
Ray loves some saltine crackers for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
How about that?
Well, Daniel, I've been listening the last several days. I've been listening to several episodes of the Southern Gospel Journal. Man, I'm thoroughly enjoying your podcast. I mean, it's very informative, and you've had a wide variety of guests. And man, I love to find out stuff about Southern Gospel, which I've been involved in for several years. I love finding out things that I didn't know before. And so I applaud you for the work you've done so far on the Southern Gospel Journal.
Yes. Thank you. And I love and I have appreciated every episode you've put out on Behind the Crown as well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So I was thinking if both of you were all right with it, because this is a joint episode that's going out to both our audiences, maybe we can each introduce ourselves. Could you both share a little about your background?
Sure. Josh, why don't you go ahead, Josh? You're the youngest here. So.
All right. Yeah. 36 years old, live in Fitzgerald, Georgia. Been a Kingsmen fan since the year 2000. That was the first time I ever remember seeing them live. Bryan Hutson was there on stage with them at Waycross, Georgia, and the all-night sing. And that night, unbeknownst to me, that night I had the onset of type 1 diabetes attack my body. So while all the groups were singing, the Neelands, Dub Brothers, I was going back and forth, going to get Coca-Cola's, water, Gatorade to drink, and I went there mainly to see the Neelands. At that time, I didn't know it because I didn't have singing news. Rex died back in January of that year. So when they hit the stage, I didn't know nothing about that. And Rex went on stage. And I was kind of a little disappointed, So I thought, well, Rex is not with them, so wonder who's next, And lo and behold, to me, the Kingsmen hit the stage. That wall of sound, the guys, Bryan Hutson, Jerry Martin, Parker Jonathan, Ray Reese, Andrew Ishii, Jason Self, Greg Fox. I don't know, Randy Miller might have been there. He might have not. I can't not remember exactly. But then after that, I just fell in love with the Kingsmen. And we started last year on this podcast. And I just kept aggravating Bryan long enough. I said, hey, we need to do this podcast, because I figured I've had a pretty good relationship with Bryan. I said,
yeah,
be the perfect guy to do this with, and he's got a long-standing history with the Kingsmen, as far as fan-wise and singing-wise. So we just started on it from there and just fell in love with it ever since. And I appreciate Bryan doing this with me. About every week we took last December off, but after that, every week we've been doing an episode, and we've just been having fun.
Well, for me, my name is Bryan Hutson. I born and raised in Southern Indiana, Southeast Indiana, and I really became involved in music. I tell this jokingly. My father was from the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, and his family, uncles, and he had he had several uncles that could the shape note and went to the singing schools. I mean, from in the early 40s, and great uncles, and all of them could sing and play instruments, and they could, all that was the shape note singers. And then on my mother's side, who was from Southern Indiana, they could all sing, but none of them could read music. And so you had the shape notes, and then I call them open up, let her fly.
Yeah,
style of singing. And that was, I have 2 or 3 aunts that could play the piano. Everybody could sing, had great family harmony. Like I said, nobody could read music. So I really got music, the love of music and the love of gospel music from both sides of the family. So I started playing drums when I was about 13 years old, traveling with my family locally in Southern Indiana and Tennessee and the surrounding states. Joined my first professional quartet. Well, then my brother and I, we formed a little trio called the New Generation in about 1985, and we traveled together for 9 years. And then I eventually went on the road with my first professional group called the Heartland Quartet, and George Amon Webster and Roy Trimble, former Cathedral members, and another young man from Kansas, Brent Fredericks, was the bass singer. And so I traveled with those guys. And about 3.5 years, and Eldridge Fox, the owner of the Kingsmen, produced their albums. And so, I had been a Kingsman fan all my life. I'd forgot to kind of throw that in there, and that was my connection. I mean, everything the Kingsmen ever recorded, I studied and learned, and man, it was just surreal. When I joined Heartland, and our very first professional recording, was produced by Eldridge Fox. Anthony Berger played the piano on it, and it was just a surreal moment to get to meet those fellas. And then in 1996, I had the opportunity to join the Kingsmen as lead singer. Big Jim Hamill was retiring, and Tim Surratt was leaving the group. And so I joined the Kingsmen in 1996 and stayed for 5 years and left, and went become a worship pastor in West Virginia from 2001 until 2005. And then I went back on the road with a group called the Blackwood Gospel Quartet. That was Mark Blackwood and those fellows, and sang with those guys about 2.5 years. And then Radine Reese, who had acquired the name Kingsman, it had been retired for a short time. And Radine Reese called me and said, would you be interested in coming back to the Kingsmen? And so I rejoined the Kingsmen in 2007 and stayed till the last part of 2011, and almost another 5 years with the guys, and just have had a wonderful time. And I joined another quartet in 2012, early 2012, and I came off the road in 2016, and my wife and I have been ministering together since then. And Josh told you that he was pestering me about the podcast. My biggest fear about the podcast was I am not tech savvy at all. And that was my biggest fear. Not that I knew Josh had the technology portion of it covered, but for me, I'm still upset about the rotary phone being gone. I mean, I'm not tech savvy at all. That was my big fear. But since we've been doing the podcast, and it's dedicated to Kingsmen, I love talking to the older guys. I love talking to the current group as well. And I really feel like, not that the Kingsmen are above anybody else, but I have a connection with the Kingsmen because not only but I was a member, but I was also a fan. And the Kingsmen, I mean, how many groups? I was thinking the other day, how many groups out there have been continuously touring for 70 years?
Yeah,
70 years, and I can think of, maybe a handful, and that's it. And the Kingsmen have stayed, touring continuously, and so that's what we want to do. We want to recognize and honor the guys, and honor the Kingsman name, honor the history of the Kingsmen. And so I'm thrilled that the Kingsmen are supporting the podcast, and so we're just going to keep interviewing guys, and we have special things coming up this year.
that's right.
I'm thankful for the work you're doing with with your podcast, because when was the best time to start it? Okay, 15, 20 years ago, a few more people you could have interviewed.
Yeah.
Second best time, when you started it.
Right.
There's so many stories you're getting now you might not be able to get in 10 years for one reason or another.
True.
So just grateful for the work you're doing to preserve this history. There's no question Kingsmen are one of the most impactful groups that Southern Gospel has ever seen.
Yeah.
Grateful for the legacy. I'll introduce myself. I'm from Northern Ohio and had the blessing of being born to Christian parents. Then it's late teens, about 19 or thereabouts, I started a site called southerngospelblog.com. Later, as the term blog fell out of use a little bit, I later renamed it Southern Gospel Journal. I wrote daily posts every day for 8 years, every weekday.
Wow.
And then I also got, through that, Nikki Gamble at Horizon Crossroads noticed me and hired me, and I worked for Crossroads from 2010 through 2016.
Wow. Okay.
So I had the privilege of working for the Kingsmen's record label for 6 years.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
yes,
Yeah, pretty awesome. Well, like I said a moment ago, I'm really enjoying your podcast, and
yes.
I do. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and most of them are music oriented, and I think that gospel music needs more podcasts, more positive things to listen to, and also promote the gospel at the same time. So
Yes.
And I will throw in one mission I have is doing a lot of episodes that tell stories other podcasts might just not happen to tell.
Yeah.
I had the chance to work with some behind the scenes record company people, tell their stories. I just put up an episode the other day with Chris White, who's a member of the Southern Gospel Hall of Fame. He's not going to be on that many other podcasts. I wanted his story to be told. That's part of why I came back, to tell some of those stories. And it's always a privilege to talk to the current artists who everybody knows also. But a big part of the reason why I decided to, so to speak, come out of retirement was to tell some behind the scenes people stories, and people who've been off the road for 20, 30, 40 years. To tell the stories, get them preserved, help people now to know the stories, but hopefully preserve them in a way people some years from now can still hear them too.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And that's why we've done a couple of tribute episodes so far, and we have more of those planned for our podcast, because like I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, a lot of the current fans, I mean, Jim Hamill and Eldridge Fox was instrumental in the success of the Kingsmen in the early 70s. Okay.
Yeah.
The fans now, they both those gentlemen have been gone for so long. Some of the fans now have no earthly clue who Eldridge Fox and Jim Hamill was. So we want to make tribute episodes so that they can, oh, okay, I heard that name. I may have heard that name and seen it on a recording someplace, but we want to actually, talk to the people that knew them and give their perspective. And same with you, to recognize and honor those names, even though they're in heaven now. We can still honor them on earth for their contributions to the Kingsmen and gospel music. So,
yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Yes, that's right.
Well, suppose that we could put this podcast in a time capsule so that someone could open it and play it 100 or 200 years from now. And you never know, maybe YouTube will still be around, and maybe people will play this 100 or 200 years from now. If you were to describe the Kingsmen to someone from another era and culture and century, how would you describe the Kingsmen?
Josh, I'm gonna let you answer that first.
That is a very good question, Daniel. Probably just the only way you can describe them, really, just a big, huge wall of sound. And I'm not talking no bad or noisy sound, just a delightful sound, I guess you would say. Something that you could also feel and that you could enjoy, really and truthfully. Yeah. Not only the music, but the message behind the songs as well. Yeah.
I would say high energy quartet. Of course, they're now using accompaniment tracks and back in the day when I was there, when I first got there, we had a live band. So I would say just high energy music, high energy, biblically based songs. I would say high energy, biblically based song, great vocalists. Batten down the hatches, here comes the Kingsmen. I mean, that's what I would say. Batten down the hatches, here they come. So, yeah.
I don't have much to add. The only thing I would add is, if you can imagine a scale of intensity of a song from 1 to 10, let's just keep it real simple, a 1 to 10 scale of intensity. Well, you might have a rock concert that stays at 8, 9, or 10 the whole time. And you might have a coffee house singer who stays at 1, 2, 3 the whole time.
Yeah.
One characteristic of the Kingsmen concert, especially in the live band era, is you will go 1 to 10, and that will happen multiple times.
Yes, that's correct. That is correct.
And in a song like Love Lifted Me, it might happen in the song.
That's true. Song. That is exactly right. That's exactly right. And it was, and the Kingsmen program, at least the years that I was there, a program was designed to do that. It was designed to start off easy, and then you get to a peak, and then you bring the people back down again, and you're peaking, you're raising and lowering the intensity of the program the entire time you're there, and also just and allowing God to work, and allowing. Especially during the years that I was emceeing, we had so much material that we designed a program all around that we could be able to call a song that we felt maybe God was directing a certain way, and we could pull out a song to, I guess, to reach that goal of intensity and reaching people and allowing the Holy Spirit to work. Yeah.
Now, I promise I'm not going to beat the time capsule analogy to death. I won't extend this out the whole time, but there's something useful to it because, my wife grew up not really knowing Southern gospel.
Yeah.
And there's other people who I'll be sharing this with on Facebook who grew up not knowing Southern gospel. And if you grew up in Northern Ohio and you weren't actively seeking out Southern gospel, the world of the Kingsmen might be as unfamiliar to you as somebody who opens a time capsule 100 years from now. So I thought, even for people today, coming at it from that angle could be a helpful starting point. Now, I won't torture the time capsule analogy much further, but I will do one more question.
Okay.
Let's say we got this time capsule and we can put 5 albums in it to illustrate the Kingsmen's history. What 5 are you thinking?
Well, I'll go first, and I give Josh. You would have to put in Big and Live.
I agree.
That would have to be in there. I would put in Big and Live. I would put in probably Chattanooga Live.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to put in Live Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 3 live albums right there.
Yeah.
And then I would put in probably Wish You Were Here.
Okay.
The album Wish You Were Here. That was Song of the Year in '92. And that was really when the Tim Surratt, Gary Shepard, Parker Jonathan, Ray Reese lineup really started coming forward vocally. So it would be Big and Live, Chattanooga Live, Live Naturally, Wish You Were Here. And then, I don't want to, this is not, I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I would have to put the When God Ran record in there.
Yeah.
Because it was the When God Ran song, not because I sang on it, but they purposely wanted to kind of step away a little bit from the 3 chords and Cloud of Dust that the Kingsmen were known for. And so the When God Ran song was a little more contemporary sounding, or a little modern, more sounding than had been previously recorded. In fact, they were sending When God Ran to radio stations, and they were like having a contest. Can you guess who this is? And 99 or 90% of the people were not guessing the Kingsmen. They were saying, "Oh, that's Bryan Free and Assurance. Oh, that's Triumphant." They were not guessing the Kingsmen. So I would have to put those 5 albums. And like I said, the last one was not because I was on it. Yeah. And and I could put 10 more records. I mean, I would put 10 more records in that time capsule. But yeah, Big and Live, Chattanooga Live, Live Naturally, Wish You Were Here, and When God Ran. That's the albums I would put in that time capsule. That's a great question, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. And Josh, yes. And by the way, I was Mickey Gamble and the rest of the crew at Crossroads had just started reaching out to some bloggers at the time, and I think it was David Bruce Murray who posted audio from it. But I was at least part of the online discussions around that contest, and I have fond memories of that. Remember it well.
Yeah. Well, Josh, what 5 would you say, Josh?
All right, so I had to break my phone out here because where I won't butcher the title name. So, of course, Live Naturally, I'll say that one. That album right there, Big and Live, which I got autographed by Nick Bruno, Brady and Reese, and Johnny Perrick. From 1977, just a little closer home.
Oh, yeah.
That album. And then 2 of the, I guess, newer ones. Shelter from 1999. And I would probably say Victory Shout. Add that one as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I was thinking through a top 5 as well. And I have a hard time not going all live albums because that is so much the first thing people think of who know the Kingsmen's music.
Yeah.
So as soon as I thought top 5, just instantly my head went to Big and Live, Chattanooga Live, Live Naturally, Live at the University of Alabama, best album opening of any album. ever.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
not just Kingsman album. You don't get a better album opening and
Oh, yeah.
get the crowd into it from second one than how that album kicked off. And then I go better in person.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
the problem is there's one other album I really wanted to include to pull in a different era of the group. And it's like, which of these five go bump off, I can't say. But I really want to have in that top five somewhere, Old Time Way, 1990.
Okay.
Which I believe you were a part of.
I was, yes.
But in some ways, and you two know what I mean. Everybody else, hear me out on this one. In some ways, it's a little more live than the live albums.
Yeah. Yes.
There's no clapping because it was recorded in the studio, but this is all done the way albums used to be done, all done in the studio, all at once, all the instrumentals, all the vocals, all in one take. And if that take wasn't good enough, y'all went back to the top.
Yes.
Now, the live albums were live, but they could go in and swap out a line later, add a harmonica, add whatever they needed to. They did a little bit of that.
Correct.
Not to any embarrassing extent.
Yeah.
And I'm not revealing any great secret. You read the album liner notes, you'll see overdubs. I'm not revealing any trade secrets here.
That's right.
But so the live albums had some fixing up. Old Time Way might have been done in the studio, but it was so live, there weren't any fixes on that one.
Correct.
And it's a phenomenal album.
Yes. Well, thank you. And we've talked about this in an early episode about the Old Time Way. That was very challenging because, hey, we were used to doing with the live band, but it's different when you're trying to get everything correct. And these songs, honestly, we really didn't know the songs. We had heard them 2 or 3 times, rehearsed them around the piano, and then we started filming. We started taping each song, and we'd stop and kind of go around the piano. And Jeff Collins, who was producing the album, would show us, here's how we're going to do it. We'd go run through it a couple times, and we had to go back and redo a couple things that we'd messed up on. But it was challenging, but it was also a lot of fun. But it was also an album that the fans, Daniel, really didn't care for. They really didn't. I think they just didn't grasp it because we sold a companion video along with that, and the videos were being sent back to the office because the people were buying those at our concerts, and they were expecting us to be standing in front of an audience. They weren't expecting us to be standing in front of a sheet, a lyric sheet. And they thought, well, what's going on? So I don't think the fans at the time really grasped the album. They wanted more of a live concert setting, and it wasn't that. And so we got some reports back that they weren't crazy about that album. But I enjoyed it.
And since you mentioned Jeff Collins, I have to mention the work he's done producing decades of Kingsmen albums through the years at this point. Alan Kendall, and I had to have some excuse in this podcast. You can't have this podcast without shouting out this book, Decades of Music, Decades of Memories, by current Kingsman baritone Alan Kendall. He called Jeff an honorary Kingsman, and I feel that title is well deserved.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, we both have the book. Josh and I both have it. And it's phenomenal. I mean, I contributed several things in different songs, and it was an honor for Alan to reach out to me. And I believe he's working on a second book. And in fact, he emailed me. He texted me about a week and a half ago and asked me about 6 or 7 songs. And he said, "Go ahead and give your thoughts on them." So I'm honored to be a part of that book and honored to be part of the Kingsman legacy. And so, yes, that book is great. And anybody that is a Kingsman fan should reach out and get on Amazon and order that book, and it'd be a great addition to their library for sure.
Yeah, if you hear something in this podcast episode that piques your interest, I want to learn more, that book is the perfect next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, so I would like to talk about some of the key members of the Kingsmen through the years.
Sure.
So if you don't mind, maybe we'll start with Jim Hamill.
Sure. Big Jim. They called him Big Jim. He, as a fan, I thought Big Jim was the greatest MC of all time. And even as a Kingsman member, he was still the greatest MC that's ever been. Most people, when we talk about Hamill, they talk about his MC skills, and I don't really feel like he's got the recognition he deserved for a lead singer. He was incredible. He had an incredible range. He could sing the low stuff. He could sing the high stuff. He had the little falsetto that he could flip up into and sing the pretty stuff. When he would sing it, he'd say the old man still got it type of thing. But he had a great feel for arranging music. He knew what the guy's strengths were. He knew what the guy's weaknesses were, and he was able to what I call direct traffic. And what I mean by that is he would call the program, um, and then when he got to the little later in his years, he was still there. He wasn't singing as much, but he was still on the platform, still directing whoever it will be it Arthur Rice or Tim Surratt to sing his part, to sing the melody. Um, and so he just had a way of handling an audience. I mean, he could walk out there, and there might be 3 other groups on the program, and Hamill had the gift where he could control that audience and control their emotions almost with their music and with their songs. And I've never seen anybody do it. I mean, I've watched it live countless times as I'm a member of the group, and he walks out there. And of course, when I joined in '96, he had already retired officially, but he was still riding the bus. And if he was on the bus, we would be doing our normal thing, and we'd bring Hamill out maybe for the last 3 songs. He would do one from his solo album, then another one with us, and then he would help. He would usher in the last song, and it would be normally something up and people getting on their feet. And during those 3 songs, he could control an audience. He didn't need a 45-minute program to call the songs and call the program, but it was amazing to watch him at work and just to see him do his thing. But Hamill was he also he wanted you to be professional. So I will say this, and I've said this on on our podcast. Sometimes his methods weren't always the right methods, and this is not degrading to him in any way. I loved Hamill, and we got along very well. But his methods were not trying to beat up the person or degrade the person in any way. He wanted you to become the best. So if he saw something in maybe a part of your range that wasn't as strong as it should be, he would purposely key the songs that made you have to learn how to sing in that range or in that key. And so to make you better, if he saw you goofing off on stage or talking or whispering, and there's times I've seen gospel groups today where they're doing way too much talking on the stage between themselves. Man, if Hamill ever saw you do that, boy, he would call you out in front of 2,500 people that night on stage, and it would teach you never to do that again.
Yeah.
Don't turn your back to the audience. You never turn your back to the audience. If you have to communicate, you say what you have to say, and you get back to focusing on the program. So that was Hamill. But ultimately, he wanted the best for the Kingsmen. He defended the Kingsmen, and any guy will tell you he might have been a little rough on you as a person, but if he ever saw anybody else taking advantage of you or trying to take advantage of you, he was the first one to stand up and put a stop to it. So to me, that was Jim Hamill. An incredible lead vocalist. I would say one of the top 5 lead singers of all time. That's what I would say for a quartet.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I can remember back in, I want to say it was year 2006 or 7, 1 to 2. Kingsmen were down in Waycross, Georgia again, and at the all-night sing, and I think it was one of the last years they had it outside at the fairgrounds down there in Waycross. And I didn't have a cell phone at the time. I wish I did, but I had one of them little throwaway cameras, and I remember getting my picture made with Ray Dean and Jim Hamill that night. And sadly, I don't have the picture now, but that was pretty neat to see Jim Hamill, even though at that older age, like Bryan said, could still work a crowd.
Yeah.
Get the tenor, Jeremy Peace at the time, singing a high note, and he just had the crowd eating out of his hand, you know,
Oh
basically.
yeah.
But just one of my memories of Jim Hamill. Yes, sir.
Well, one other consistent thread I've noticed that's come up time and again in your episodes is that he might kind of pick on people on stage.
Yeah.
But the one singer after another said essentially, not in these words, he was setting himself up as the antagonist,
Yes.
make you the hero,
Yes.
make the audience love you by the
Yes.
time the day was up
Yes.
at his expense. And the audience, and he did that, and the audience still loved him anyhow, which showed his talent to pull off both. That was one thing that has stuck out to me in interview after interview. People said that.
Yeah, he had that gift because he wanted the people to feel sorry for this young guy over here that Hamill's picking on, because everybody loves the underdog. Everybody loves the underdog, and so if this young person, he's nervous already, and he's new to the Kingsmen, and so he wanted people to love you more, and so he would, like you said, at his own expense, he would try to, he would say something to the new guy, or treat the new guy a certain way to get the people to love him even more, and that is so true. And he did the same thing to me. He would say, when he would introduce me, or he would walk out and he'd say something about me, and he'd say that I was ugly or something, or something, and the people would just, you would hear him go, oh, you would hear a gasp in the audience, because he was trying to build up the new person and make the person be loved even more. And like you said, Daniel, at his own expense. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then we obviously need to talk about Eldridge Fox.
Well, Fox to me was a great boss. I appreciated his baritone singing so much. He had to me, the only way I know how to describe it, he had a big chested baritone voice, and he could blend. I still think one of the best things that I loved listening to during my first tenure was the song "Beyond the Clouds" from my very first album that I did with them. "Beyond the Clouds," that was the name of the album, but the song was myself and Chris Collins and Eldridge Fox and Ray Dean had the vocal on that song "Beyond the Clouds," and to me, that was a highlight of my career, that I got to sing with Eldridge Fox, and I think the blend that the four of us had was amazing. So there's still, to this day, almost 30 years later, I joined the Kingsmen in '96, so it's been 30 years. I will still get out and listen to that title song "Beyond the Clouds" that I got to sing with Fox. But he was such a wonderful man, loved the Kingsmen, loved gospel music. And that's one thing that I appreciated about him. And what I loved about Fox, he helped other groups when he probably didn't have to.
Yeah.
But he loved this music so much. You hear stories about how he helped the Gold City, how he helped find the first 5 #1 songs for Gold City. He produced their monster albums in the early days of Gold City. And it wasn't just about the Kingsmen. He could have had the mindset, I'm going to try to make the Kingsmen advance and everybody else fall by the wayside. But he sacrificed himself financially, personally and financially, for not only the Kingsmen, but for gospel music as a whole, because they love the music and love the people. And he loved the fans. I shared on an earlier podcast when he hired me, he said, there are 3 things that'll get you fired from the Kingsmen. One, if I ever catch you messing around with somebody you shouldn't be messing around with, being mean to our people, and ever catch you drinking or doing drugs. But one of those was being mean to the people, to the fans. And so he loved the people, he loved the fans that much. And he was just a wonderful mentor. I wish, of course, when I joined in July of '96, he had his stroke in November. I wish I would have had more time with him on the bus to get to know him as a person. But incredible man, and what a legacy that he left.
Yeah. Probably my first memory of Eldridge Fox. Never got to meet him, unfortunately, but met his son and talked to his son on the podcast. But Eldridge Fox, "Behold the Master Cometh," on the
Yes.
Georgia Live album back in 1994, I believe. there in Augusta, Georgia, at the Bell Auditorium. That was my first time I've heard Eldridge Fox sing. And you could tell just a big voice, like you said, but also he let the spirit move on him as well when he was singing. Very tenderhearted man as well. And wish I'd have gotten to meet him, but hopefully one day in heaven we'll get to do that and talk to him. But probably that's my memory of Eldridge Fox, and just like you said, Beyond the Clouds.
Yeah.
That great song. Even on the original recording with Beyond the Clouds back in the 70s, another great song as well.
Yeah. And I think Behold the Master Cometh, in my opinion, was Eldridge Fox's greatest solo. That was his greatest feature. It was an incredible song, for sure.
You know, it's funny, Josh, because and I'm delighted you mentioned it too. And that was exactly where I was going when I was gonna talk about Eldritch, because I would say of the classic live albums, I heard Live at the University of Alabama first, Big and Live next, and then all the others from the 70s and 80s. And somehow Georgia Live was right near one of the last ones I ever heard.
Yeah.
And, you know, the gospel songs of the 60s and 70s were a little simpler. And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing sinful about a simple song that conveys a message simply. But there wasn't quite as much meat on the bone sometimes as you get when you get into the 80s and 90s. It's just what people wanted changed a little bit.
True.
And I heard his solos on those earlier albums and appreciated he's a good, solid baritone singer. When I heard Behold the Master Cometh, the light bulb went on. I get why Eldridge Fox is Eldridge Fox.
Yes.
Like, that captured so much personality.
Oh yeah.
So much heart. The other thing I have to say about him, because I have a different perspective than most people, was somebody who worked for Crossroads for 6 years. And Crossroads came out of the merger of two record companies, Sunlight, founded by Chris White, and Horizon, which Eldridge founded.
Yeah.
And I hate it, but I didn't grow up around Southern gospel. I borrowed a Cathedral CD on a random whim from the library in 2003. And then started listening to Southern Gospel Radio, subscribed to Singing News all within the next year, learned all the groups. 6 years later, I was working for Crossroads. But to hear, it wasn't a reverence in a bad way, but just working around people who had worked with him every day for decades. The way everybody at Crossroads who had worked with Foxy talked about him, the only analogy I can think of, and this almost is a bad word to say down south, and sorry about this, the Yankees, New York Yankees, Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm only saying it because the original Yankee Stadium they tore down 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They called it the house that Babe Ruth built.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine if you'd been working for the Yankees about 5 years after Babe Ruth died, and you walked into the house Babe Ruth built and you were working there every day.
Yeah.
That's about what it was like to work at Crossroads, except Babe Ruth could be a bit of a difficult personality sometimes.
Okay.
Fox, this is a different story. I'm not saying they were similar personality-wise, but with the admiration and respect that the people who knew him best had for him increased my admiration and respect for him to see who and then of course to hear it over and over from the guys on the bus too. Those who knew him best respected him the most, and that says a lot for a person.
Yes. And Fox, and this has been said by several members on our podcast, he was generous to a fault.
Yes.
He would give you, if you needed help, he would find a way to help you. And I'm sure his family sometimes got frustrated about that. I'd have got frustrated, but if somebody called one of these, if it's one of his guys called, or even somebody in gospel music, if they needed help, Fox would do whatever he had to do to help you. And that's a great quality. It's a great quality to be loyal. I will call Eldridge Fox loyal, and just a wonderful mentor to me. And we called him Papaw. I mean, all the younger guys in the Kingsmen, during my first tenure, we called him Papaw because he was more than a boss. He was, he was like a grandpa to us. Yeah. So.
Yeah, speaking about that, I remember Randy Miller in his episode talked about how he wanted to buy a Stratocaster that Roger Fortner had. And didn't have just so much money, so he sold his set of golf clubs.
Yes.
And bought that Stratocaster, and then Eldridge heard about it and said, "Son, don't do that because we need you out here on the golf course just like we need you making music." So
Yeah.
Eldridge went back and found a guy that sold golf clubs, I guess, and bought the clubs and gave them back to Randy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That was a great story. And yes, Fox was known for that. There's probably hundreds of stories that we probably will never hear about similar to that, where Fox did that for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have to can't move on without talking about Ray Dean Reese.
Ray Dean Reese is probably one of my favorite people in the entire world. When I joined in '96, I had met Ray, and we kind of had talked a little bit, but very little before I had joined them. Because the group I was with, Heartland Quartet, we worked an occasional date with the Kingsmen, and during that time it was, Chris Collins singing tenor, and Tim Surratt and Parker and Ray and the band. Anthony had left by then, and so Ray and I really became friends in '96. And even though he was 20 years older than me, um, uh, we really hit it off. Ray during that time, he was just the bass singer, and but he really took the new guys under his wing and helped you. And I'll never forget, my dad passed in '99 during my first tenure, and Ray Reese helped me because he had lost his dad. And in fact, his mom had passed away. His mother had passed away during my first tenure, and we sung at his mother's funeral. But when I was really struggling around '99, the last part of '99, going into 2000 with my dad's death, Ray Dean Reese really helped me. There was many mornings that I would be in the bed in my bunk, underneath his bunk, crying over the loss of my dad. And he would pull my curtain back and he would say, "Are you dreaming about your dad again, cousin?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And he was he was a friend. He really was a friend. And when I left, and then I came back, and when I came back in 2007, now Ray has the ownership of the Kingsmen. He not only is the bass singer, but he was a great boss. And we just picked up where we left off with our friendship. And Ray took care of me. Ray and Brandon both took care of me, and I'll forever be in debt with that. But Ray is a funny guy. He's a funny person. He doesn't mean to be funny, and even to this day, I've left the Kingsmen in 2011 during my second tenure. I left, and we still talk every couple weeks, and he's just one of those guys that probably one of the finest I've ever known. And I've known a lot of men in my lifetime, a lot of guys that have poured into my life. But Ray not only poured in me musically, but I've come to cherish our relationship. And so I tell people, Ray, yeah, and you can't talk about Ray without doing Ray. You talk about, hey, babe, cousin, so that's just who Ray is, and one of the most iconic voices of all time. You instantly recognize Ray as soon as you hear a group, whatever lineup it was, that's Ray Reese. You instantly know his voice.
Yeah.
And I count as an honor to be considered his friend.
Yeah. Neat. Yeah, Ray Dean Reese, my favorite bass singer of all time. Just somebody that's been friendly to me over the years. I remember when he was traveling with the group, go see him live and in concert, getting to talk to him. And then, like Bryan said, when he come back in his second tenure, Bryan called me up on stage to sing with the Kingsmen. And boy, I probably messed him up for sure, but that was always fun, a highlight for me. But Ray let me sing with him, and Ray tried to have me as bass mic a couple of times to sing. I said, "No, you hold that mic, you going to sing with me because I need all the help I can get." But just super friendly guy. Love Ray Dean. I actually talked to him this past weekend and called him and talked to him on the phone just a little bit, and sounded great. He sounded like he was doing great, but just a fantastic guy. like I said, just my favorite bass singer of all time, and just thankful for his kindness, his and Brandon Reese's kindness over the years, and all the Kingsmen. But yeah, I appreciate Ray Dean Reese. Yeah.
There are a number of people who could theoretically have been part of reacquiring the Kingsman name and carrying it forward for a new generation. I'm grateful it was Ray Dean that did it.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Same here.
Well, just for the sake of time, I think we maybe talk about a couple other people a little more briefly, but let's just talk about a couple of the Kingsmen members who are now in glory.
Okay.
So let's say something about Squire Parsons.
You want to start on this, Josh?
Yeah. Got to meet him on the Singing at Sea cruise back in 2015, and they had a little Kingsman reunion there, and just Bryan got me up on stage afterwards to get a picture made with him and some of the other guys, and just a giant guy, tall, giant man, but what a great songwriter, great singer, and just a great, humble guy. Love Squire Parsons. Yeah.
Well, I would say for Squire, I first met Squire probably, I'm going to say early 1990. My brother, myself, and my cousin were in Huntington, West Virginia, recording making a recording, a little studio there in Huntington. And we went to go eat lunch that day. And as we're walking out after eating lunch, this bus pulls up, and, here we are, big gospel music fans, and it's Squire Parsons. And Ernie Haas was singing with him at the time. And of course, we didn't know Ernie Haas, but I saw Squire, and I had a copy of the Singing News magazine in our van, and it was I flipped through it, and because I knew Squire had an ad in there for a new album he had just come out with, a solo album. So I ran in there and grabbed a pen, and Mr. Squire, would you please autograph this picture for us and for me? And he was so kind and gracious. But I would say one of the top 5 voices of all time in gospel music. Incredible singer, incredible range, but songwriter, I would have to say within the top 5 greatest songwriters of all time. How he wrote so many classic songs, and we could spend an entire podcast just naming off Squire Parsons songs. But Sweet Beulah Land has to be included in the top 10 songs of all time for gospel music. But how he could just in my opinion, he had a special relationship with God. Not saying he was any better than anybody else, but you could just tell when you was around Squire that he had a special relationship with Jesus. And he was one of my true heroes. And I don't use that word lightly anymore as I get older. But Squire Parsons was one of my heroes, and my favorite all-time Squire Parsons song was "Oh, How Sweet the Name of Jesus." When he starts that song, it just takes me back as a child, and one of the greatest videos, I would say about a 6-minute video, is on the 40th anniversary reunion at the National Quartet Convention when they go into "Lovely Name of Jesus," and Squire starts to preach a little bit at the end of that song before they finish it, and he starts preaching, and the glory bumps, as Hamill would say, go up and down my arms to this day. Still, the "Lovely Name of Jesus" is my favorite all-time Squire song. And if I had a bucket list, and I wish I could go back one time, and I did on the Singing at Sea cruise. Squire was in one of the piano rooms and was doing some songs around the piano and playing and singing. And I went in and I got to sing "Lovely Name of Jesus" with him and his other son. And we did a little bit of that. And that was a bucket list moment for me. So Squire Parsons, true man of God, true hero.
I only got to meet him a time or two, but I did come some part from growing up in Northern Ohio. But so I mainly got to know him through his songs.
Okay, yeah.
And there is such a scriptural depth to his songs that you find in very few other writers. You're talking like Charles Wesley, John Newton levels here.
Yeah.
And not just an academic knowledge of scripture, but the heart of somebody who feels it deeply, and just what a legacy.
Yes, absolutely.
Ernie Phillips.
Woo! You want to go first, Josh?
Yeah. Met on the scene at Sea Cruise. Actually, before that, in 2016, I met him. He was filling in with the Kingsmen. It was in between tenors, and we was going to. That was the fifth Sunday night in January, I believe. And met him, got my picture made with him after the concert, and then a couple weeks later, I said, "Hey, I'll see you on the cruise." He said, "Okay." So me and my twin sister was on the cruise late one night after midnight, walking around, and we didn't see him, but out of nowhere, he jumped out and he scared us. This little short man scared us, and he got us good, but he come up to us, and he said he remembered me, which made me feel cool,
Yeah.
But I introduced him to my sister, and he hugged both of us. He said, "Whenever y'all see me again, just call me Papa Ernie."
Wow.
One of the best tenors of all time. He's top 3 of my favorite Kingsman tenors. When Crossing Time Shall Come. Of course, we do not die, but When Crossing Time Shall Come is probably my favorite song that featured Ernie Phillips with the Kingsmen.
Well, Ernie, to me, was another one of my heroes. And when I got to finally meet him, and we've talked about this on the Behind the Crown podcast, I was like a fanboy. I mean, it was like I was a basketball player meeting Michael Jordan. A high school player meeting Michael Jordan. To me, that was Ernie. And then not only did I love his voice, because that's the voice I grew up hearing. And then when I met him and found out how down to earth and what a godly, kind man he was, no ego. I mean, if he had an ego, I never saw it. And let me tell you, many a time when he was with other groups, or he might have been with the Land of Sky Boys or Squire's group, and they'd be singing along with the Kingsmen, he could have very easily, guys, said, "Hey, I made this song famous. I'm going to sing this song during our finale." We'd get the groups up there together, and he was always that kind of person. He was pushing the other guys out for. He wanted the other tenors to sing. He could have said, "Hey, no, I made this song famous. I'm going to sing it," but he was never that. It was almost like when you would compliment him or brag on him, it almost embarrassed him. It almost embarrassed him. And he was just so humble, and it wasn't a fake humbleness. It wasn't anything like that. He loved people. He loved encouraging younger singers, and he was just one of those guys. And countless people have told me through the years how he encouraged them, countless tenor singers and other singers too. But for me, Ernie Phillips was a hero of mine, an absolute hero. Never heard anything bad ever said about Squire or Ernie, either one. And those two guys are in heaven, and I'm gonna sing in a quartet with them one day. I'm gonna get to heaven, and we're gonna sing in a quartet together. Because to me, it was that was Ernie was the voice of the Kingsmen for so many years for me, and I loved him as a person, not only for his vocal talent, but for who he was.
Yes.
And of these first ones we've talked about, I probably had the chance to talk to him more than any of the other ones. And the same words stuck out to me: such humility.
Yes.
It didn't matter what. And everybody in Southern Gospel tries to be humble, virtually everybody.
Yeah.
And most everybody has some level of humility. Like, there isn't room for people with huge egos who act like rock stars. That's just not what Southern Gospel is.
Right.
So everybody tries to be humble, and most people have some level of humility, but you could tell there was no putting it on, no fake humility.
Yes.
One of the most talented people I've ever talked to.
Yeah.
And so humble.
Oh,
yeah. All right, maybe mention a few other people more briefly, just for the sake of time. Mention a few other names, maybe.
Right.
I'll give a little fanboy moment here. We got to interview Jason Self, bass player back in the 90s and 2000s. And let's just say I'm a big Jason Self fan. And that was a neat experience to get to talk to Jason. Matter of fact, before we come on tonight, he texted me and texted just a little bit, but that was a great experience for me. And also Gary Shepard and Tim Sherritt.
Yeah.
And just all these guys, really, Daniel, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
just to talk to all the guys that we have talked to, Nick Bruno, that they would be willing to talk to somebody like me. Man, I'm blessed. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I would have to me, you'd have to throw Johnny Perrick in this. You'd have to throw Perrick, because Perrick came in early 70s, and he really set the standard for the high tenor singing, blood and guts, and that's the only way I know how to say it. The blood and guts type tenor that the Kingsmen were known for so many years. Perrick set the standard for that. Because up to that point they had some great tenors. Jack Henderson and some of those guys that sang in their early days. Jerry Red was a great tenor as well. Kermit Jamerson was a great tenor for the Kingsmen. But when Perrick come in, it was a different style, and they it was just high and loud, and so Big and Live was a perfect name for that first album that they did, the come out monster album, the Kingsmen. So Perrick has to be included in that, because he's had so many, the most emulated tenor of all time. I mean, every tenor that's ever, I can see, on Glory Road, they're emulating Johnny Perrick, even if they're not even in the Kingsmen and they're just in a local group singing Glory Road. If they do that little move, they're doing Johnny Perrick.
Yeah.
And so even to this day, if Harold Reed, he's the current Kingsman tenor, if he does that move this weekend with the Kingsmen, he's doing Johnny Perrick. So you have to include Perrick in that. And iconic voice, I would have to say Tim Surratt. I think Tim Surratt is one of the, and he's the one that introduced "Wish You Were Here," and myself and other lead singers have sung that song, and I think done very well. But no one can sing "Wish You Were Here" like Tim Surratt, even to this day. 30 some years later, since he recorded that song, 30 plus years, when Tim Surratt steps up and says "Wish You Were Here," you instantly it's his song. It's going to be forever Tim Surratt's song. Other singers may come. I attempted it. Jason Self attempted it. Cole Watson, the current lead singer, he's doing a great job at it. He's doing a great job. But to me, and it's no slam to anybody, that's Tim Surratt. So Tim Surratt's one of those iconic voices as well. Gary Shepard, Gary Shepard introduced "He's All I Need." He did the Go and Tell Somebody. He did stand up. I mean, you have to include Gary Shepard in that list too. So, and even the guys that I travel with and was a part of, the Chris Collins and the Jerry Martin and Harold Reed and all those tenors that came in, and Jeremy Peace, but those voices, they took the Kingsmen in new directions. And Greg Fox, Greg Fox led the Kingsmen for several years, and you have to mention those names that were part of the group for so long. And I'm just glad to be a part of that legacy for sure.
I feel like at the end of Hebrews 11, where there's the Hall of Faith of the heroes of the faith, and the author says, "And time would fail to tell us."
Yes.
We would love to mention every member of the Kingsmen through the years, and you all have stories. And because we didn't happen, okay, Arthur Rice, another one.
Absolutely, Arthur.
Just because we didn't mention somebody here means we think any less of them. We're just
absolutely
fitting what we can fit in an hour or 90 minutes. Right. With the highest respect to everybody else who we didn't happen to mention in this segment. Moving on to another question. What is your favorite Kingsman moment you were there for? In Brian's case, that could be as a fan or on stage. And then for the other two of us, as fans.
Well, Josh, do you have a favorite?
I'll go ahead. Yeah. 2015 Singing at Sea Cruise, little Kingsman reunion. Ernie Phillips was there, Jerry Martin, Arthur Rice, and then the current guys at the time, Bob Sellers, Randy Crawford, Chris Jenkins, Ray Dean Reese. Andrew Ishii was there as well. Got to meet Andrew. Thanks to Brian, got to meet Andrew Ishii and talk to him. Squire Parsons, like I said, that was just a great little Kingsman reunion.
Yeah.
Mark Trammell was there singing baritone MC work that day. But that was one of the Kingsman highlights for me, just to be there on the ship that day. Where was we at in the Atlantic Ocean down there, or down near Mexico, where we was at, and just a great time. Yeah.
Well, for me, I think I've got a couple, but I'll for sake of time, probably on the Gaither homecoming at the Georgia Dome, 1998, when they introduced the Kingsmen to come up and do Sail Up High Someday, 35,000 people at the Georgia Dome. And not only that, and so many people, but so many legendary gospel music on the stage behind us. I mean, we had the Goodmans, we had JD, we had, of course, Hovey and Jake Hess and all those legendary people, Rex Neal and all those guys, all those people were on the stage behind us, and we're up there and singing, and 35,000 people at the Georgia Dome. So that was a highlight for me with the Kingsmen, and as the group, we got to enjoy that together. And I've always been a team player, always will be a team player, and that was a highlight for me for the Kingsmen.
And my highlight, it's two-part. I was working for Crossroads at the time, and I forget who just left, but I heard that Ernie Phillips was filling in for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And I feel like I drove halfway across North Carolina. I don't remember how far it was. It was farther than practically I've ever gone for a concert. One of the farthest ever. It was like, I'm going to go however far it takes to hear a full concert of Ernie Phillips with the Kingsmen. I just can't not. I have to.
Yeah.
And thankfully, since I was with the record company at the time, I wasn't there in any official capacity just because I love the music. I didn't have any official business to do there, but they didn't mind if I came for the sound check. So I was there for sound check. Well, not only was I there for sound check, it so happens they were auditioning Chris Jenkins that day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I actually got to be there for Chris Jenkins' audition. And when I heard him with them, I was like, well, I mean, of course they're offering him. They can't not offer him the job. He has to be their next tenor, and he will be. He's going to be one of the all-time great Kingsmen tenors. Like it was just to me. I didn't say anything. Of course, I let them make their own decision. But my take on hearing Chris Jenkins audition with them was, this is going to be one of the all-time great Kingsmen tenors. They have to hire him, and I was so glad they did.
Yes.
And then to go through the concert, and I forget who was emceeing that day. Whoever it was like, we don't need to do the whole excuses song. We'll just have Ray say his line and Ernie sing his line. And that was cool. And but then hearing Ernie sing God Saw a Cross, it wasn't his song. It was generations, several tenors after his time.
Yes.
Yeah. The heart he brought to sing God Saw a Cross.
Yes.
That was a highlight. So to have that all in one day, have a full concert with Ernie and Chris Jenkins and Chris auditioning, that was a good night.
Wow. There's a couple videos out there of Ernie doing When God Saw a Cross, and it's amazing. And even Harold Reed would tell you, who introduced that song. He'll tell you, he said, once I heard Ernie sing it, he said, I don't need to sing a song ever again. I said, but you came full circle with that. For so many years you were singing the songs that Ernie made famous.
Yes.
And now Ernie was singing a song that you made famous. So it's kind of a full circle thing for Harold. So
yes, that's right.
All right, here's a fun one. Gold City has a signature song. Gold City's signature song is Midnight Cry.
Yes.
There's no question about it. The McCameys had a signature song. Their signature song is God on the Mountain. No question about it. Both of them had other big songs, but they both had one signature song. Is there a Kingsman signature song? And either way, can we talk up for a couple minutes about the signature songs of some of the individual members of the Kings?
Yeah. Josh, what do you think?
That's a way to. Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to ask Josh what his opinion was on the signature song of the Kingsmen.
And this is a way to shout out some songs that we may not have already talked about in this podcast. A way to get them mentioned in a fun context.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna say it this way. I'll say it's a signature song because only a couple of lineups of the Kingsmen have done it. Of course, Wish You Were Here, but that's still carried on. I'll just say my favorite song, I'll Live Again.
Okay.
I've heard people talk about those years when it come out in 99 and 2000 at EQC in Louisville, when it was the big, massive crowd, how y'all would end with that song with the program. It had people on the feet going crazy, and the next group would have to come on stage, and everybody just kind of, okay, well, this next group's coming on. But I'll say I'll Live Again for me. Yeah.
Well, for me, that's a hard question because from a fan standpoint, also from a former member standpoint, there's very few groups that have more than one signature song.
And the Kingsmen have so many, it's hard to name one.
But I would, if somebody was to ask me, okay, you have one, I would say the Old Ship of Zion. Yeah. I would have to say the Old Ship of Zion because instantly it's recognizable as a Kingsman song. Of course, Josh just mentioned Wish You Were Here. That's a signature song as well. But I think of overall the Old Ship of Zion.
That's what I was going to say too. Like, it is so hard to name one song.
Yeah.
But I think I was going to say Old Ship of Zion too. What was it? Singing at the Smokies, Bryson City last year. Kingsmen were there, and Ray Dean came out for a night. What's the song they put Ray Dean on? Of course, they have him sing Old Ship of Zion.
Yes.
And of course, everybody came unglued.
Oh yeah, yes. Absolutely. It's just one of those songs, and and on the original, this is kind of I've never shared this on the podcast, but on the original, when Ray is doing his verse, get on board, that little note. He's Rabbit Easter of Jeff and Sherry Easter fame. Rabbit Easter, incredible steel guitar player. Every time we would work with Jeff and Sherry Easter and Rabbit was there, he'd walk around, and as soon as he'd see Ray, he'd go, "Get on board." Yeah, he did the same key, and it made everybody laugh. And he would do it 20 times a night. Every time he'd see Ray, "Get on board," And so that was what Ray was known for. But the Old Ship of Zion. But that's that has to be to me that's the Kingsman signature song.
Yes, and then I think it would be fun, and I agree. I think it'd be fun also to talk about signature songs of some individual members. And I'll kick us off this time with two that have already been mentioned because they've already been mentioned. And that is, although he sings so many other phenomenal songs, including We Do Not Die, there's something about Ernie Phillips singing When Crossing Time Shall Come.
Yes.
There's that. Actually, I'll mention three. Eldridge Fox singing Behold the Master Cometh.
Yeah.
Talked about that one. And then, Brian, you singing When God Ran.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I got to mention those three. It's three that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
And then turn the floor over to you to talk about some more.
Well, Gary Shepherd, I think his signature song is He's All I Need, which I loved other songs he done. I loved, let's see, In the Name of Jesus from Live in Dayton. But He's All I Need is his signature song. Tim Surt, of course, Wish You Were Here. Arthur, I would have to say would be Play for the Hungry Are Fed. That was his signature song. Hamill had a lot. Of course, he had Excuses, and he had the Apple Tree song and songs like that that people love to hear him sing. I think a song that was overlooked was on the Anchors Away album. Hamill did The Lost Sheep. Yeah, it's incredible. You can look it up on YouTube. It's an incredible song written by Ronnie Henson. And Ray Dean, Shake Hands with the Poor Boy, it was his signature song. The Healing Stream was another one of his signature songs. Parker Jonathan had several. He had, I love to hear him sing Hiding from His Voice from the Live in Dayton recording. The Name That Set Me Free. The Name That Set Me Free was a great song that featured Parker. Also, Across Is One Again. That was a great song that kind of featured everybody, but Parker had the verse on it. Let's see, Johnny Perrick, of course, Glory Road. He also had Look for Me at Jesus' Feet was a signature song for Perrick. Fox, you mentioned that. Behold the Master Cometh, but so many signature songs down through the years from the guys, especially during the years. And of course, you got to mention Love Lifted Me when you're talking Ernie Phillips, hitting the big high note at the end. And I still get that. I still get that out every now and then to get my blood flowing a little bit. So and the current guys are doing great with their signature songs as well. That they're bringing out songs that, of course, that was recorded earlier. But what I love about the current group, they're still bringing out new songs, and they're trying to get those introduced to the audience. And there's just so many iconic, and we're going to do an episode of iconic Kingsmen songs, and we're going to touch on some of those songs that we grew up loving, and maybe some obscure songs that people need to go back and give a listen to.
Yes.
Yeah. I have been thinking of asking obscure songs. Why don't we save it, just for the sake of time? Let's save it for that episode, and I look forward to hearing you talk about that.
Okay.
Josh, any other signature songs you want to shout out before we move on?
Bryan Hutson, Come and See the Rising Sun. Yeah, that was a great song. Talk about some of the current guys now. Cole Watson, Soul Set Free. Another great song as well. Alec Kendall, I mean, he's come out with several great songs that just featured him past couple years. And Church of the Great I Am is a great song that he done. He done a Christmas song that Brian and myself talked to him about.
The God Who Gives Himself Away.
Yeah.
Incredible song. Incredible song.
Yeah. That's right.
You know what? There's one more I actually want to mention. And I don't think anybody would say it was Ray Dean's signature song, but signature song or not, it always got me when he sang it. And that's when he sang Loving Shepherd, Gracious God.
Yes.
Because there came a time in his career, he had so many signature songs people wanted to hear.
Yeah.
When he wasn't singing too many new songs.
Yeah.
That was one song that he sang and sang consistently for a long time. I had the chance to work with the song's writer, Diane Wilkinson, on her autobiography. And she said that she wrote it after she heard a preacher talk about Psalm 23.
Yes.
And said that the psalm was written from the perspective of an old sheep, a sheep who had seen the shepherd be faithful for many years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's why she said she wrote, it was that inspired the bridge where it says, there's a loving shepherd leading me where the older sheep have trod. He is guiding, guarding, feeding me, loving shepherd, gracious God. When Ray Dean sang that, I mean, in part because I knew that, but in part how he sang it, you see this sheep who's known the shepherd for a long time.
Yes.
And it's one of those songs that a 20-year-old might be able to sing the notes, but couldn't convey the heart of it. He conveyed the heart of that song so well that I wanted to mention it here.
Well, I'm thrilled. I was on that recording,
and
I chose that song for Ray. Diane had sent us some songs, and the first time I heard the demo, I said, I want Ray to sing that. And he did a great performance on it. But like you said, lyrically, he delivered that song so well that probably nobody else, like you said, a younger person couldn't have maybe have done so well. But Ray, and it was a joy and an honor for me to get to sing that with Ray. It was a wonderful song. Another one, and I'll mention one more Ray song, "To Count for Jesus." Count for Jesus, recorded in 2006 on the Good God album, and I called that song. And when I came back in 2007, we were doing songs off that record, and I called that song every single night because I love that song. Still love that song. It's one of Gray's greatest features, "To Count for Jesus." Yes,
I agree. All right, so lightening the mood a little, lightening the mood a little. Is there a singer who was never a Kingsman who you wish was?
Woo, Josh, what do you think? I'll let you answer that first.
I'll just say it. I think he's a fan of the Kingsmen, Jonathan Wilburn. Yeah,
cool. That's a good one.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, that's a tough one. I mean, that is really a tough one.
Well, I'll add one more too. The bass singer, Will Lane. Yeah. I'd like to see
cool.
Yeah. Will would have fit in very, very good vocally. He would have. Gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, I've heard a lot of singers down through the years that absolutely could have done it. Rick Strickland back in the 80s could have. He vocally could have done it. In fact, at one point he auditioned for the Kingsmen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he auditioned for the Kingsmen, and that's when they hired Gary Shepard. so singers like that, yeah, I think could have done it. I would have loved to hear Jack Toney sing lead.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I think Jack wasn't really known, but he has had such a great range and a great singer. I would have loved. Of course, Jack Toney is one of my favorite singers, so I would have loved to heard a little bit of Jack Toney with the Kingsmen. That'd have been pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah.
And I'll mention one too, and he was probably the reason I asked this question. The first Southern Gospel concert I ever heard was the Mark Trammell Trio in their first year or two on the road. Eric Phillips.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Super.
Of course, he was on just a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And I was already working on the questions for this, and I was like, okay, there's a good tie-in to mention that episode.
Yeah.
But he's the most the Kingsman tenor that was never a Kingsman.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Eric had a great voice, still does, and he would have fit not only with the people saying that's Ernie Phillips' son, but he would have fit vocally very easily with the Kingsmen. Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah. His high notes were so effortless when he was the first tenor I heard, and he made it look so easy.
Yeah.
Everybody who came after him in every concert I heard, some did, but everybody else had a high level to live up to it, and that was my starting point.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, my starting point, hearing Mark Trammell and baritone too, no less.
Yes.
All right, Josh, I think you mentioned you might have a couple of questions, so I don't want to monopolize the whole time with mine. We can go into a couple things you might want to talk about.
Your favorite Kingsman lineup, Daniel?
Well, it would involve Ernie Phillips on tenor and Squire Parsons on lead.
Yeah.
The baritone. Were there two baritones during that time? Who was the baritone at that point?
Well, let's see.
76.
Wayne Maynard was there for a while.
Wayne Maynard.
Mark Trammell sang a little bit of baritone, but mainly Maynard.
Mainly Maynard.
Yeah.
Okay, so and it's in part vocally, and in part just the impeccable reputation both men had, and the level of spiritual depth they brought.
Yeah.
I can't not say, as much as I love every other lineup, I have to say Ernie Phillips on tenor and Squire on lead. And I love Hamill as much as anybody else, but there's some that lineup sounded so amazing too.
Yeah, and Ed Crawford also sang baritone during that lineup too for a while. So
that live recording you posted a couple weeks ago of Squire singing "Is Not This the Land of Beulah?"
Oh yes,
he tore that place down.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you a question. I know Josh has got a couple. I want.
Sure.
From your standpoint, what do you think was one key factor in the success of the Kingsmen staying relevant in Southern gospel music? Do you think there's one? What would be your opinion from the outside? One key element or one key factor for the Kingsmen staying relevant all these years?
It's hard to say just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you obviously have the songs.
Yeah.
And you subtract, there's so many signature songs, it's hard to name one.
Yeah.
And if I had to say just one, fundamentally, this is Southern gospel music. We're about the gospel.
Yeah.
That's the heart of what it is we do. And there were so many songs that conveyed the gospel so well that I'd have a hard time saying anything else.
Yeah.
If I only had to say one, I'd say songs. If I had to say another, I would say something I referenced earlier between the singers and the live band, how they could take the dynamic from a 1 to a 10.
Yeah.
And would several times in a concert. There were other groups that go from a 1 to an 8 or from a 2 to a 2, 3 to a 10. I don't know if there was anybody else who could bring it all the way down.
Yes.
And then all the way back up like they could.
Yeah, that I agree with that. I agree with that. That was a gift. They had that gift, and I agree with that.
And you can't say there's only one factor. Part of that was Hamill reading the room.
Yes.
Part of that was the songs. Part of it was the singers. Part of it was the live band. It's all of it together.
Yeah.
So that's almost cheating the question to say that, but just speaking to the result rather than the factor. But
right.
Yeah. Oh, my last question for you, Daniel. What is your all-time favorite Kingsman song? What is Daniel Mount's all-time favorite Kingsman song? Yeah.
For a long time, I probably would have said When Crossing Time Shall Come, and that might still be. And I hope they bring it back someday. But after hearing you post that live version of Squire singing Is Not This the Land of Beulah?
Yeah.
There's something about, I've loved that hymn for a long time. There's something about that version that might take the number one spot.
Wow.
And if I'm allowed a top three, I'm probably going to say Behold the Master Cometh.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I love the songs with heart and depth, both.
Well, I have a question. So about your podcast, and you're doing such a great job of that.
Thank you.
What do you think your overall goal is for your podcast?
Here's the fun thing. I don't know if I have a goal this time around.
Okay.
I had the privilege of seeing all the success I could want to see the first time around.
Yeah.
With not only putting up a daily post for 8 years, interviewing just about anybody in the field except Bill Gaither. I got to meet him, never interviewed him.
Okay.
But it's like anybody I wanted to interview, I had the chance to. I had the chance to work for Crossroads for 6 years. I mean,
Yeah.
does it get better than that for somebody? Yeah. Okay. Does it get better than that for somebody who doesn't have the vocal talent? I can play. I'm a church pianist. I can play a little piano. And if I had really, really if I'd had a burning desire to be on the road, piano would have been my only shot, which is part of why I like groups that still have pianists. But I always had a heart to be part of my local church every Sunday. I had a calling to church music, help my church with church music. That's just been where my heart's been my whole life. So it doesn't get any better than working for Crossroads. And the nice thing is, I don't feel like I want to prove any points or need to prove any points. I just wanted to come back to talk to people I enjoy talking to.
Yeah.
And tell some stories that I thought might not be told if I didn't come back. There's a couple episodes I've already recorded, and a couple more I hope to record someday, especially the behind the scenes people.
Yeah.
And then some people have been off the road enough years that I'm not sure they'd ever be on another podcast. And now their stories are told in the singing news 30, 40 years ago. Good luck finding one of those old magazine issues. It's hard to find old singing. So their stories have been told, but not in a way that's accessible to younger fans today.
Yeah.
Just coming to love this music.
Yes.
So I wanted to come back. I've just been super inspired by some of the groups that have hit a real, kick things into another high gear these last couple years. What the inspirations are doing, seeing Wyatt Austin singing Sea of Forgetfulness was a moment for me that I'm like, there's still something that's so special happening that I need to come back and talk about it some more.
Yeah.
So the fun thing is I just want to tell good stories. And I think deep down in my heart, I kind of don't have a goal, and I'm kind of happy about that.
Well, and I like what your answer was, because I like it that you're interested in interviewing the people that are behind the scenes, like the Chris Whites. And I watched the one on Jim Stover, the co-writer of Wish You Were Here. It's the behind the scenes people that don't get recognized because they're not on the stage in front of the 35,000 people, or the people at the Quartet Convention, the Memphis Quartet show, but they're the ones helping these groups, supporting these groups, recording their music and finding the music and getting behind them. And basically our cheerleaders, it's the Jim Stovers and the Chris Whites and the Mick Gambles and, and the Jeff Collins that get behind these groups and are supporting them, that their stories, and people might read their name on a record or a CD cover or a USB cover now, but I love to hear those stories too. Mainly for one, because I have a connection with those people, because I work with them for so many years and have great relationships with them. But I feel like people need to know about the people, the behind the scenes. And it's like the church world. It's like the people that go in church every Sunday morning and clean the restrooms. It's like the people that go in and vacuum the sanctuaries and clean up the children area so the kids can come in and learn about Jesus. And those people have stories. They're giving of their life, and they're not at teaching Sunday school. They're not at preaching. They're not out there singing the specials on the praise team. Those are behind the scene people that shovel the driveway, shovel the walkways, and do the little things that people oftentimes, well, I can't do much in the kingdom of God, but yes, you can. You can. We're all vitally important, not just the music, but we're all vitally important in the kingdom. So,
yes. And I'll throw in a couple more details, having another minute to think about it. I also hope to do a lot of featuring songwriters. That was my initial point of interest in music. I actually had the privilege to collaborate with Diane Wilkinson on a few songs, one of which Freedom recorded. I don't think any of the other ones have gotten recorded, done some other writing through the years. So to tell a songwriter's stories is another big goal. And then the other fun thing, like why this year? Well, this year is 20 years since I first started blogging. It's also 10 years since I left Crossroads.
Wow.
And this year I turned 40. Okay. So I was like, could I have a better midlife crisis than to go back and talk about Southern gospel stuff? Like, that's, for me, somebody wired like me, I don't think I could think of a better midlife crisis than this one.
That's great. That is great. That is great.
Oh, man.
That is great.
Yeah. I like that.
That's good.
I'll mention this right quick, Daniel,
sure.
before we ended up here. But our main goal with this podcast, Behind the Crown podcast, of course, is dedicated to the men, the message, and the music of the mighty Kingsmen, but to get these stories out from Bryan Hutson, from Johnny Perrick, Nick Bruno, Gary Shepard, Radine Reese. For these will be preserved for future generations.
Yeah.
I never thought I would do this, but I'm glad I took it on and got Bryan to help me. And Bryan, I tell you, he does a great job getting all these gentlemen scheduled. I do the small part. Bryan actually does the big part, and I appreciate him doing that. But and I would much rather somebody else have done this and be excited every week to hear this, but I'm just more excited now than when we started with this. What Gary Shepard said to us was, he kind of got emotional when he said it, but he said to do it all these years and like all these older gentlemen and then come off the road, just don't want to be forgotten.
Yeah.
You know, and as a big Kingsman fan, I promise you, they're not forgotten by me. But as time goes by, it doesn't matter if anybody remembers me or forgets me, but as time goes by, these gentlemen, and hopefully we'll get some more of these gentlemen in the future, but just so that people would remember them. And if the Lord tarries, I don't know how much longer, but for the new people coming in that can hear these stories and be blessed by these men and their ministry. Yeah.
Well, I go for it. Sorry.
I was just going to say, for me, the Kingsmen were such a vital part of my life growing up. I liked Elvis Presley. I was a fan of Elvis Presley's music. And I grew up as a kid in the 80s. I was an 80s kid, 70s and 80s. But as a teenager, they're in the 80s. The Kingsmen were my group. They were like, at the time, the rock and roll bands, the kids I went to school with, they liked Kiss and all the rock and roll bands and things like that. For me, it was Southern gospel. It was the Kingsmen Quartet. And I love interviewing the former guys that I grew up listening to, because I want those guys to know what an impact they made on me. They made on me. I seen them as guys that were standing up there singing for the Lord and playing music or singing, and that's what I wanted to do. And so let me tell you, and I've said it 150 times, and I'll say it 150 more times, when I was able to join the Kingsmen and join the group, the group that inspired me to want to do music, that was a dream come true. So I love honoring the guys that I grew up listening to, and I want them to know they just weren't a member of the Kingsmen. They made a lasting impact on my life, and they inspired me to want to do what I've been able to do for the last 30 years. And they were a part of that. The Kingsmen, yes, but individually, the Wayne Maynards and the Gary Shepherds and the Arthur Rice and the Johnny Perricks and the Ray Dean Reese and all those guys that inspired me. I want them to know how much I value now as a friend. I get to call them guys friend. I get to call Tim Surratt my friend. That's so cool to me. And it's just something I'm going to treasure for the rest of my life.
I have two questions I'd love to close with. But before we do that, I want to add on to something you both said. And this is something we're both trying to do, but I think you've already are doing and have been doing with an exceptional degree of class since you've launched this podcast. There is one thing that can be captured in this format, this video conversation format, that isn't being preserved in any other way, and that is you get a glimpse of the personality and heart of the people who are on the bus in a way. I have a whole row of Southern Gospel books on my shelf, and I'm thankful for every one of them. You can only tell so much through the printed word. I worked with the written word in blogging for 8 years and did feature-length interviews that were hour-long conversations that I turned into text interviews because that's just what we were doing technologically back then. And I'm grateful. I did a feature interview with Rusty Golden and talked about some songs that the Kingsmen sang in that it might be hard to get that story otherwise. I'm glad I talked to him while nobody knew he was going to go so soon, so young. I'm glad I talked to him while I had the chance to tell the story. But I got to get a feel for his personality in a way that the people just reading the words didn't. And the people just reading the singing news don't. And even seeing somebody on stage, you get little glimpses of the personality, but only so much. And I think what you're doing with this podcast, and I want to thank you for it, is the new generation of fans, and hopefully people 30, 50 years from now, can see the heart and see the personality of some of these gentlemen who made this legacy in a way that hasn't been captured in any other format that's publicly shared.
True. Well, and I was thinking about that very thing today. There was a turning point, and not to go too long on this, but at one point, Jim Hamill knew he was going to retire. So an album that come out, Singing in the Sun, which introduced the legendary signature song, He's All I Need, and the Healing Stream. Hamill allowed every Kingsman person, every member, every vocalist to say something, including Anthony Berger. They didn't do that before. Hamill did all the talking. He might let you. He might let you do a testimony for like a 20-second testimony, but he didn't let you talk. And so, what I love about our podcast, kind of reiterate what you're saying, you get to hear those guys talk. You heard them sing on an album. You heard them sing on a live album, and now you're getting to hear them talk from their own words, those stories, those great bus stories or stage stories. And so that's one thing I love about our podcast. We're actually letting them talk, and like you said, and you hear their personality. And I've even had friends of mine, Troy Cadell, a great pastor friend of mine. He told me a few days ago, he said, that one interview you did with Gary Shepard, he said it made him human to me. It made him human. He said, I always heard him sing. I finally got to hear him talk and hear him from his heart. And so we want to keep doing that. We want to keep sharing those kind of stories.
And you're doing it so well.
Thank you.
So I'd love to close with two questions. And these are two that I've had in mind since I first proposed doing this episode. One is, you can't talk about the legacy of the Kingsmen without talking about their impact on everyone else. And we've already talked about that some, but I think as we move toward wrapping this up with the final two questions, we could talk about that a couple more minutes. And I have some insight into this too from working with Crossroads. But let's talk about, when we talk about the legacy a group leaves behind, it's almost phrased in a darker way. What would Southern Gospel look like if that group had never existed?
Wow.
And because it's not just there's no Kingsmen, But does Gold City stay a local group? Do they get to the point that Eldridge Fox got Gold City?
Yes.
Then Eldridge Fox, some of these artists have started building reputations, but does what Eldridge Fox did to launch the McCaneys and Karen Peck and New River,
Yes.
and so many other groups on trajectories to become the top groups in the industry. Some of them might have gotten there by other means. Not all of them would have. Let's talk about like that legacy the Kingsmen leave behind on other groups for a few minutes.
That's very true. I mean, had Mark Trammell really got his start with the Kingsmen. Of course, he went on to the Cathedrals and then started his own ministry, Greater Vision. Then he started Mark Trammell Trio and then Quartet.
Gold City.
Yeah, Gold City was one of those. Like you said, so many groups. I mean, Arthur Rice, joined the Kingsmen and later went to the Kingdom Heirs and spent 27 years there with the Kingdom Heirs and was the lead singer and vocal arranger and stage man for so many years. So many groups got their start from the Kingsmen. I mean, honestly, we could make a list all day and how reference the Kingsmen on this particular person. This person that became, a household name in gospel music got their start with the Kingsmen. That's a great thought, great question. Yeah. How many people can we name? Several well-known gospel music personalities got their start or was helped by the Kingsmen.
Yeah,
that's great. Wow.
Yeah. And not only the people too, but probably the songs as well. Some of the songs probably, if Gold City would have done Excuses, probably wouldn't have been the same, But songs like that, yeah. That's a great question,
Yeah.
Nate. Yeah.
There is that. Sorry, there is that secondary impact of the songs in the 70s and 80s. You'd be hard pressed to name a group besides the Kingsmen that had more local and regional groups singing their songs. And you know what? There were plenty of people saved at those services too.
Yeah.
In fact, if you were to total up the local groups singing Kingsmen songs, there might have been more people come to saving faith in Jesus at all those groups put together than the Kingsmen singing to 2,500 people every night when you got so many groups.
That's true.
Where a good portion of their repertoire was the songs the Kingsmen introduced.
Oh, yeah. Well, during and not to go long, but there were several nights that we'd have a group opening up for us. And sometimes, the local groups, they've been, and this is not a demeaning thing, but they would practice all day at that church or the auditorium where they were going to be opening up for us. And they would have their set list on the floor sitting in front of them so they would know what song was next during their set list. And there's going to be at least 2 or 3 Kingsmen songs on the list. And I never said anything to them, but one night I kind of said something because we got there to the building and this group was kind of maybe a little bit egotistical and it was going to be that they were just being very difficult. The group was being very difficult, and I saw 3 Kingsmen songs. And one was a song that we were planning on doing that night because it was our current radio song. They were going to sing it before us. And I said, was that your set list? Oh yeah, that's our set list tonight. I said, well, we're for sure going to do one of those songs. Oh, you are? I said, well, yeah, that's our current radio song. We're going to be doing that tonight. Well, we thought we would do that in honor of the Kingsmen. And at this time I said, I'd rather you not do that song. We're planning on doing that. And then another, but anyway, I'm not going to belabor that, but, so yeah, you're exactly right. So many groups were doing those songs and those classic iconic songs. And I'm sure when those guys recorded them, just like I did, I didn't realize the impact they would make on other people. And so I'm thankful that those songs were being sung because my little local group we did Gold City and we did a lot of Kingsman songs. So anyway,
all right, one last question. I thought it'd be fun to end on this one. What could the Kingsmen look like at 100? What do we hope the Kingsmen look like 30 years from now? Lord willing, we might all be there to see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Well, so let's dream a little. What could the Kingsmen legacy look like if they make it to year 100?
Okay, Josh?
Oh, hopefully they're still singing some of the classics, but hopefully some new songs that kind of had the same impact as some of those classic songs as well too. And who knows, maybe even a live band would be back. That would be great.
That would be That would be a dream.
Yeah.
Well, for me, knowing Ray Dean like I know Ray Dean Reese, I would not be surprised if Ray's still around. Listen, Ray Dean's mother lived to be almost 100 years old. And I tell you, a great memory, the day we sang at her funeral, we did Rise from the Grave to Meet the Lamb. And let me just tell you, at Ray Dean Reese's mother's funeral, there were people shouting all over that church. We kicked into that false ending and went up we will rise up from the grave. I'm telling you, people were shouting all over that church. But Ray Dean Reese could totally be there. I would love to see the guys bring back a live band again. That would be just incredible. And I would love to see that. I think they're going to have great vocalists. Yeah. No matter who is there, the Kingsmen have always been known for great songs and great singers and people that fit the group well. So I would say some younger guys, maybe one of the guys is still there in their 70s. But I would love to see that, and I think Ray's still gonna be connected with the Kingsmen forever.
Yeah. You never know. Maybe it'll be around year 100 if Brandon starts to get ready to slow down. Maybe Alan Kendall will be the one to take the group over then.
That would be good. That would be
never
good.
know.
That'd be good.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Anything you'd like to say where people can keep up with the podcast? Definitely want to give that a shout out.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. You can be sure to follow Behind the Crown Podcast on Facebook and on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Also, you can listen to Behind the Crown Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadios, and all major podcast streaming platforms.
Thank you. And I'd say the same platforms. You can find Southern Gospel Journal, as well as you can read written transcripts of the interviews at southerngospeljournal.com. Thank you so much to both of you for coming on. I have had an absolute blast talking about the history of the Kingsmen.
We have too, Daniel. We appreciate you coming on, man. And you just keep the Southern Gospel Journal. You keep doing that and keep finding those great stories, and keep sharing the gospel as well and talking about Jesus during the podcast, because ultimately that's what we all should strive to do, whether we're talking or doing music or whatever. It should always point to Jesus and his love for us.
Yes,
that's the goal. And to the listener, I would say thank you for listening to this joint episode of Behind the Crown Podcast, Southern Gospel Journal.